Y'all, we live in difficult times. There's war, political unrest, the pandemic, poverty, families being torn, communities ripped by gun violence and people dying every day, police, injustice. It's all bringing so much pain. But y'all, we can look inside our minds and we can understand who we are, become better, and do this thing like we've never done it before. But it all starts with our mental health, and I know we can do it. I believe in you because I believe in me, and I believe in us. Welcome to another episode of Therapy is Life, where thinking, feeling, and experiencing well-being is what we do. Today I got my boys with me again. We're going to continue our discussion on feelings, wonderful feelings, right? All right. Before we get too far off into this, what's up, bros? How y'all doing today?
Doing good.
Another day, summertime in Cleveland. We good.
It's too hot, but I'm all right, though.
Yeah, you want to take off all your clothes?
Man, listen, hot is so much worse than cold. You can't escape it.
Nah, I'll take hot.
No, bruh. What I'm saying is when it's 1,000,000 degrees, it ain't nothing you can do to escape it, bruh. You can't put on layers like you can in the winter. You can't take off the skin. That's you get down to the bottom and still be hot. You know what I'm saying?
You know what? I'm in my office today and I'm still sweating, the air conditioner on and everything, and I'm still sweating.
Disrespectful.
I'm gonna take that vitamin D all day.
Nah,
I
man.
don't know what vitamins the cold gives you, man.
Hey,
the
listen.
cold don't give you no vitamins.
Vitamin
It does
hoodie
give you
jacket
vitamin D,
combo.
Cold gives you vitamin D too. It's just that we don't go outside as much in the cold.
Oh,
But
that's
it
what
gives
it
you
is.
vitamin D.
Okay, you can still get it in the cold.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep,
I
see?
ain't out there.
Yeah, you got to go outside in the rain, you know, in the snow too.
First of all, my jacket collection is fire, and I quite enjoy it.
I like it too. I feel you on the layers.
You know what I'm
I feel
saying?
you on the layers.
You know what I'm saying? The layers get player.
And there's nothing wearing like sweaters, man. Sweaters is the thing to wear, right?
Yeah.
Shorts, they all right, but sweaters, come on, y'all. You gotta like it.
Yeah, I can't. Like I said, I can't do the hot, but it's all right though, man. I'm good. We good.
Yeah,
we in this
everybody's
thing. Another one of these here, Therapy is Life episodes, man.
Yep. And so, fellas, in starting this discussion, I had this thought, though, we could start off talking about anger and how, as fathers or potentially fathers, we might want to, or we might role model expressions of anger. Now, before I ask this question, or have you answer this question, I want to establish the fact that anger is a strong, hostile feeling of disgust, frustration, annoyance. Anger is typically what we might consider to be a secondary emotion, which means that there was some other emotion, baseline, sadness, frustration, disappointment, hurt, anxiety, fear, loneliness, something that we were struggling with that didn't get heard. So the second step was to get angry. But anger is normal, but how we express it is what's most important. And of course, experiencing it too much could be bad for our health, our heart, our mind, our body, and our soul. So I'm going to digress a little bit. I'm curious, fellas, but as a father, how do you like to role model or express anger in front of or to your children?
Well, I'll speak to it and say that, I think what you said was important as far as anger is a human emotion. So it's an emotion that everybody experiences, but how do you display it, right? So, not digging too deep into my background of it, but, being raised, I think my father being a first generational father in the house, he didn't have the example growing up on what a man should do in the situation of being angry and showing your kids, because he was raised by a single mother. And so I think he took on sometimes the traits that he learned, maybe more so from being raised in a household with predominantly women, his mother and my grandmother, my great grandmother. And so sometimes through anger, he would show, vocal displease. And so he would be aggressive through his conversation and showing his anger. And so because of that, I didn't grow up feeling like that was the best way to handle it at all times. And so I try to, in being angry, explain to my children, my anger, but not, display it in fussing or doing too much yelling, because from my own experience, sometimes that can go in one ear, not the other. People can turn a deaf ear to you displaying your anger in an aggressive way. And I'm not the best at it at all times, but I will try my hardest when I'm angry to, give myself a second to process what I'm angry about and really care for my words, because I know for me, I can, if not taming my tongue, I can come off the deep end. You know what I'm saying? And say some wild stuff that I'll probably end up regretting. And so I know that once them words is out there in the atmosphere, you can't bring them back. And so I want to try my hardest to, process my anger through calm conversation, and I literally have to tell myself to stay calm, process my thoughts, and really be as clear as possible on why I'm angry in that moment, because I think that's the healthiest way of really conveying or getting to a solution of your anger.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I get it. A lot of the way that I handle being angry, because I'm not gonna say I don't get angry, but I don't do like reactionary anger. I got a very, very solid control on it. A large part of it came from like my fighting days, college, like when I was boxing, and one of our things in the gym, our trainer told us, like, we are training y'all to really be able to act in a combat sport, in a combat setting, but it's still a sport, and there's still couth and there's still decorum. And if you disrespect this by taking this outside of this space and enacting your will on people who don't got that same thing you got, that same training you have, you're supposed to have a level of discipline to yourself. And so it's like you don't have nothing to prove when you outside of here. If you fight outside of here and we find out you fight outside of here, you out of here. We loved it. So it was like, nah. And it taught us that level of calm. And then we also saw situations in there where, somebody go in the ring and let they self get out they hookup, get in their emotions, get angry because they losing or whatever the case may be, and then get even worse. And then get broke down even worse. And after experiencing that, I really like my calm and my ability to just be like, all right, I feel like this, but let me sit back and figure it out. And then also the ways that I have to express myself, whether it be writing, music, poetry, whatever, art. I've learned to use every method around myself to express myself without blowing up. And so I try to pass that to the kids the same way. It's like, listen, there's a way for you to handle this. There's a way for you to approach this. Like, I'm not gonna blow up on you. I got nothing but little girls, so I'm not about to put on the gloves with them. You know what I'm saying? So that's the thing. Like, I always, in my head, it was like, I'm gonna have a son, and when I do, and when he act up or he get out of line, he gonna have to put on these gloves with me. You know what I'm saying? And that was what my mindset was. And then I got a daughter, and it was like, oh, whole new line of thinking got to come into play. You know what I'm saying? Like, I got little girls. Realistically, I could tell them I'm disappointed in what you did. Tears and emotions. Right. That break them down worse than yelling and cussing at them.
For real.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that does, man.
If you really active and present in their life, and and you care about them and they care about you, like even my bonus babies, you know what I'm saying? Like it's that I'm disappointed in you is more effective. And like you said, having that calm conversation, that's always gonna get me the the desired result more so than the blow up is.
Right. And you can have that look. You can just have that certain look on your face.
Real life.
And then you're like,
right. And because like
looks
like,
go a long way.
No, they really do. They really do. And like, you know, like there was domestic violence in my house growing up. And so I never, you know, that was another one of those things that was like, I don't ever want that. I don't ever want to be that. Because I know how that made me look at my father. Right. So I don't ever want them to look at me like, you know, that same way. Right. Like I can't control my shit. I'm supposed to be the leader.
Right.
So, you know, it's always like, hey, look, how do you, what ways can you express this or get your point across, say what you need to say when you feel like this, that still keep you in control. Mm-hmm. And that's how it go for me.
Yeah. What would you say?
Well, I don't have kids, but I'll speak on.
Congratulations, brother.
Ching ching. So, but I guess I'll speak on it from my childhood, and I want to piggyback off of what you said because I grew up in a house with all women. It was me, my mom, and my older sister. So I think growing up, the only way I knew how to express anger was just through emotion. Mm-hmm. So like I would just get frustrated, I'd throw something, I'd get mad, I'd like, you know, hit a wall or something because that's all I was just around emotions, just all the time, just being in a house with women. And as I got older, I learned to kind of like channel that anger through running. And I know I spoke to y'all about it before. It's like, all right, I'm frustrated, I'm having anxiety, I'm getting angry. Let me go run a quick, 3 miles. Because now I can use my anger out on that. The music is taking me there. And then when I come back, I can like calm down. I'm a little bit more at peace. So I think I would just want to show my kids that if you are angry and you don't know what to do, like channel it through maybe like sports, or if you need to go for a walk, or like with my niece, like I'll tell her like when she gets real upset at something, like she might get upset at my sister, I'll be like, all right, let's go get some ice cream. Because I know that's going to make you feel good. So let's go get some ice cream. You're going to eat this ice cream. You're going to calm down a little bit, and then you're going to be able to like express why you're upset without getting like really, really angry. Yeah, right. So I guess I would just want to show my kids like either through running, through maybe going for walks, or maybe just sitting in the backyard with the speaker on and just listening to music, kind of like calm. I would try to like show them different escapes. Like you can escape for a little bit and then come back to the situation when you're a little bit more relaxed, and then we can go about it like that way.
Yeah, because in the moment it's always just the worst shit.
Yeah, it is.
Like you gonna get the most likely you're gonna get the worst result if you just react right there in that moment. Somebody walk up to you and spit in your face, your immediate reaction is sock them through the face, bro. You know what I'm saying? But it's like,
I was just gonna quickly say off of his point about channeling it with the sports piece. That's been probably like my go-to place to channel anger. This has been historically for me through life because anything else, I feel like it turns toxic. But I kind of like I was seeing this interview with LeBron talking about like how sometimes he'll look in the crowd and find that one person who's hating on him in the crowd so that he can kind of channel that into what he's going to do on the court. For me, sports has definitely been a place where like I like a little chippiness on the court. I like a little somebody getting on my bad side. That way I can take it out there. But any other place, I don't really find good places, even creatively through music sometimes, maybe some frustration, but not anger per se. Do I channel like that? But then one other thing I wanted to throw out there as a thought that I feel like in society, I feel like women are allowed to... people embrace women's emotions of anger better than they do men. In my opinion, I feel like men who are emotional through anger, it's not, society doesn't respond to that like that. Like it's a tough world out here, and you gonna catch it either way. Nobody's gonna really give you the sympathy card for your anger, and I feel like sometimes, because of women's nature to be more emotional, they might cater to that side more. That's just a thought.
Gotcha. Hey, man, I appreciate what you guys are saying. So I feel like most of my life, I've had some challenges with anger. Always been a passionate, fiery person. When I was a kid, people don't believe it when I tell them this. I used to fight a lot. Like, So I get in a fight with somebody when I was growing up. I got to fight one of my friends.
Like,
Boom.
man, Gerald coming back.
Man, he was picking on me because I was roller skating and I failed or something. He was picking on me. So I went and I fought him because of that. And then it was like, I went back. I saw he scratched me in the face. I was like, oh, he scratched me. Oh, I went back and found him again. Like, dude, you're not going to scratch me. Like, you're not going to scratch me, man. Like, so, I mean, I had some issues with anger, man. I think about some of my early work years, and I remember my sister telling me one time, she was like, you know, you always just coming at people, telling them what you think or whatever, and just coming all hard and direct, and you need to have a softer voice. And she actually pulled out Proverbs on me and everything. So trying to tell me like, hey, you need to bring it down a little bit. Yeah, bring it down a little bit. So, you know, I started evolving and trying to work on it and everything. And nobody would have thought I would have became a therapist at 20, 21 years old. Matter of fact, I wasn't even thinking about it, right? Wow. But one of the things with my kids, I realized I wanted to teach them that anger was normal. It was normal to feel anger, and that when you feel it, it's not just that you feel it, it's what you do with it. So why are you angry? So I remember feeling angry when I became a teenager and I became conscious about things that was going on around me in the community. Because I always had questions about what was the difference between being black and white and some of the different things going on in the world. When I got older and began to do a lot of research and understanding things on my own, it made me angry. So I decided to myself, instead of being being thuggish, I'm gonna work real hard in school, take my anger and channel it towards actually doing something to be more constructive. Actually, this is what I said to myself: the most dangerous thing in the world was an educated black man. Chocolate at that. No, I'm just playing. I'm just playing. Like, that was the most dangerous thing in the world. So I was like, okay. So I teach my kids, if you're angry about things or something bothers you, boom, you know, understand what it is and try to move on it so you can bring about some change. Yeah. I think another thing was understanding, like, all my children, they're, you know, you can treat everybody right, but you can't treat everybody the same. So my kids had different, like, or have different personalities. So like Mark, you was talking about your girls, like you would just look at them a certain way and they'll respond to you and they'll just, you know, move and do what you say, or you can speak with a certain tone, they'll do what you say, or they'll be fine, right? But sometimes with some of my boys, and one in particular, he struggled a lot with like anger. And I realized that I didn't always role model the best approach with him because I would go there with him. Yeah. And then one day I realized, like, you know what? I need to let him know that I'm angry, but when I let him know I'm angry, I need to actually do something to demonstrate that I'm controlling myself well. So what I would start to do was when I would get angry with him or see that he was angry and blowing up and doing things, I would walk up to him angry. I might rub my head or whatever, and he was just playing with me the other day, rubbing his head and huffing and puffing a little bit, right? So he was doing that. But what I would do is I would stop. I would say, you know what? I'm feeling angry right now. I'm really upset. I'm gonna step away for a second. I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna try to have a conversation with you. Right. Because I was trying to teach him to use his anger in a different way. I think the third thing I tried to role model in dealing with family and just and understanding that when you're talking to your wife, or you know, you're talking to auntie or uncle, whoever you're talking to, right? That there's a disagreement, that you let people know that you're angry, but you stay in control of yourself. Right. Because anger is a normal human emotion that we experience it, and we can experience it because we anxious, because we scared, or anxious and scared kind of associated, right? Because we depressed, we feel all kind of things. But when those things don't get addressed, that's why I believe people don't have anger management problems. They have lost emotion problems that they haven't been able to work through. And so it comes out as anger, it manifests as anger. And so we working on them learning anger management skills when we really need to be working on why you feel rejected, or why you feel hurt, or why you feel lost, or why you feel abandoned. Because that's the real reason why you angry. And if we address that, or we change that, right? So trying to help my kids learn that piece, and really understanding that you can be angry, but you don't have to be aggressive verbally. One of the most devastating forms of abuse, guess what it is, y'all? Yes, just take a guess.
Verbal
abuse. Say it again.
Verbal.
The emotional abuse is the most powerful form of abuse out there. The words we say out of our mouths.
Yeah.
So being conscious of that when I talk to my kids and I inspire, encourage, or hold them accountable without making them feel little.
Right.
A client said to me one time, his mom used to always make him feel like he could not be good at anything. He said, this is a grown man talking to me. He said it felt like it was a chain around his neck. And anytime he tried to do something, it was always pulling him and holding him back. And he couldn't do really anything because his mom's words was always in the back of his head. You ain't gonna be.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So, and it made me think about when you was just speaking about how, things of how when anger is not articulated the right way or not handled the right way, how it can perpetuate and fuel the spirit of like racism and sexism, right? Mm-hmm. Like you think about two babies growing up and, one white, one black, how they can grow up together without being positioned to think that anything's wrong with either one of them. Mm-hmm. They could become friends and, form a genuine bond. But all it takes is that seed for one of those child's parent to, out of anger, say something wild about that entire race of people, and that frame their way of thinking towards that race of people in general, right? Mm-hmm. Right? And so I think about like, me and my wife were raised in 3 African-American daughters in a predominantly white neighborhood, right? And so I've had my issues with race over my time of growing up. I've had issues with police. I've had issues with just racist, white people who have, done me wrong. But I still had to care for myself because I was seeing how impressionable their minds were related to my feelings towards those individuals. You know what I mean? I had to care for myself to not say all white people are bad, or put them all out there in one box because, their impressionable minds were watching how I responded to that. And I know that, if I didn't care for my words with them, the things that I say related to race could affect their entire perspective for the rest of their lives. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Growing up about white people just feeling like all of them are bad or all of them going to feel like, some type of way towards me. So, and, same thing with sexism, man, and the gender wars is going on. Like one bad situation with a man or one bad situation with a woman, if you position yourself and I think about how many young girls are getting raised by single women who've been done wrong by one man, and they plant that seed that all men are bad because of how they talk about them, and not controlling their anger the right way. So now you got generations to come who have this mind frame that all men are one type of way because they didn't handle their anger right.
Right. I want to say that so much of our society spends time trying to polarize our thinking either around fear or anger. And maybe there's a little bit of love, but when we talk about love, it's oftentimes distorted. It's not in a real sense. It's like romanticized kind of love versus the nuts and bolts of love and what it really is, that grind that it is and everything. But we'll get into that another time. Yeah. But there's so much anger out here because that seems to be something. So human beings are hypervigilant, so which we tend to focus on the things that we feel most threatened by. And so if I can present to you an argument or a position that makes you respond emotionally, I can get your attention. That idea may not be true. It may be partly true, somewhat true, but that idea will spark people to feel like, oh, this is this big issue, and so now I'm angry. So we focus on these issues with racism, sexism, gender issues in a kind of absolute way. And granted, for individuals, these are real issues, and people have been traumatized. But the thing is, we take the trauma experience and we make it as if this is the reality of every day.
Everything.
Right.
And so that influences so much pain, hurt, fear, and anger. And so when we become aware of this, my trauma, my pain is not my whole story. When we become aware that there is hope, there is love, there is connectiveness, then we can change. And one thing I try to teach my kid, you was talking earlier, Maal G, about, and all y'all been talking about this, is just trying to get your kids to see the world in a more constructive way. Not all white people, not all black people. Things are not one way. Mm-hmm. There's so much more shades of gray than there is black or white in life. Mm-hmm. And that's the tough thing, in therapy sessions. I try to get people to look at that and consider the fact that when you in therapy, there's very few things in life that's black or white.
Right. It's a lot of gray in the middle.
It's a lot of gray. Yeah. And it can make it really hard for us to process and deal with our feelings, man. But it sounds like, man, you guys out here are really thinking about constructively how to be, how to communicate to your kids. Think about this, guys. Think about this. Like, as a therapist, I've had the opportunity to work with people as young as 4, but people as old as early 90s, right? Yeah, people that old coming to me. And one 90-year-old, he came to me and he wanted to work on his anger. 91 years old, wanted to work on his anger. But when I think about that more deeply, I think about how many young adults now or adults in their 30s, 40s, 50s, they'll say their parents had issues with expressing anger or expressing emotion. But sometimes we hear the emotional part, like expressing it, but we also hear the emotional detached, the ones that don't express anything. They just isolate. They're the ones that go and they get that 40 on Sunday and they drink it. And, they don't talk about feelings and emotions whatsoever. Mm-hmm. Now, I think that for many African Americans, particularly in the 50s and 60s and before then, it was necessary for them to be that way because they were so angry about the world they lived in. Mm. They had to deal with so much stuff around racism that they learned that the best way for them to cope was to internalize, keep it in, come home, go to church, get a drink, have sex, whatever they needed to do. But they didn't learn how to process and express their feelings. And they taught that to their children. Mm. And then what happens is now you got all these adult black people out here, not everybody, expressing a lot of frustration and anger, and they're role modeling that to their children.
Right.
So even so we see the drug use, role modeling that to the children. Why are they doing that? Because they had to suppress themselves in order to survive. Yeah. And so then we see it coming out in the blues, we see it coming out in our poetry, we see it coming out in hip hop, all the anger and frustration because we had to suppress all this stuff.
Right. Can I ask you a question?
Go ahead.
And it just made me think about something that wasn't brought up, especially when you talk about dealing with your children and anger. I feel like, I don't know if you made it to this generation. You probably, maybe you can tell the end of it, but I got whoopings when I grew up, right?
Yeah.
And so my whoopings came from when my parents or my grandparents or my friends' parents were angry at something that I did. Mm-hmm. So it was a direct cause and effect. Something that I did made them angry and they whooped me for it. Now, sometimes it was borderline because I felt like it jumped slightly over to abuse at times, because I think out of anger, they may have went a little too hard. Mm-hmm. But I still, now being grown, appreciate some of those whippings, a lot of them, the majority of them that I deserve, because I felt like it gave me a clear idea of, when the stove is hot, don't touch it or you're going to get burnt. You know what I'm saying? A consequence to your wrong actions. Now, as a father, I don't whip my kids at all.
Same.
They may have got one whooping, my oldest, and she still remembers this to this day, and she's 17, and this was probably like when she was 9 when she got this whooping. But I feel like I never had to whoop her again. But I still feel like this generation could use some whoopings because I feel like, that was just a clear, like, don't cross this side of the fence. you know, that even though you might have been angry, that was still a clear sign of what not to do. But I don't know. I feel like this society just pushes it so tough to not do that. Maybe because it's just too much abuse. What y'all think about that?
I think, at least for me, so I never got whoopings coming up. You know, I'm not gonna say.
I thought you missed the cut.
No, yeah. So I never got whoopings coming up. My mom used to just be like, "Oh, I'm gonna take your game system. Or I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that." For me personally, I'm glad that I was able to experience therapy prior to having kids, because now I kind of know how to deal with the younger kids in a certain way, regardless if it be my niece or, you know, regardless if it be my nephews or whatever the case is. I kind of know how to gauge it because I know how to kind of control my anger a little bit. But I feel like a lot of times when, at least in my generation, because I just turned 30. So with my generation of people I went to high school with, they was having kids like super young. They was having kids that was like 18. So like they don't really know, like, should I whoop them? Should I discipline them? Should I do this? Should I do that? Like, they don't know how to go about it. And now like the cycle was like the kids that's now in high school, they off the chain. They off the chain, but they mom had them when they was, you know, their mom and dad might have been 17, 18, 19. They don't know how to be no parent. So like, how do they discipline their kids in a way that they feel like is effective? They don't really know. So I'm glad that I was able to like live this long, because I feel like if I am blessed to have kids, I kind of know how to go about it. I don't feel like you should whoop your kids. I feel like there's another way to discipline them.
Yeah.
Do I feel like if, you know, you got a son and he do something, you might just pop him one in the chest? Cool. Because you acting out. You acting out now. Yeah. So I got to show you, you know what I'm saying? I hit you right here in the chest one time. Now you might sit back a little bit, be like, okay, dad ain't playing. But do I feel like you got to do the old traditional, go outside, get the biggest stick, or I'm about to get my belt, come in the room? Do I feel like you got to do that? No. I never agree with that. So, and like I said, my mom never whooped me, and I came out good. So I don't feel like you have to do that. I don't go against parents who do, but I feel like there's a way to kind of be like, all right, how can I know I'm upset at my kid and I know I'm very angry at what they did, but instead of me whooping them, instead of me taking it out on them, what is another way I can like help them? But that's a part of like the parent understanding how to channel their anger.
Right. Yeah. So, my stepfather, right? My stepfather is Irish, like white, right? So when we got introduced to, like, having him come into the house was like culture shock, because I can't even tell you, I can't remember an interaction with another white person before my stepfather came in the picture, like genuinely. So it was just like, you here to fix something the first time he came to the house? I'm like, bro, like, what's going on? Like,
Mom, the plumber's here.
Yeah, you feel me? Like, genuinely, like, yo, who the fuck? Who is that? Like, but, you know, when we got into the house together, you know, like, my mother whooped me for sure. You know what I'm saying? Grandmother, friends, mother, didn't matter. Next door neighbor, like, everybody had the license to put it on you if you was doing something stupid. And my stepfather did too, to a degree. But I felt like it was different because it was like he was new. You know what I'm saying? It was weird. Like, dog, like, I don't know you. Mm-hmm. And then I also was dealing with anger, with the confusion and like self, like feelings on myself, like somehow like it was our fault that our parents divorced. You know, kids stupid. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like, my parents split up, it's because of us. Like, you know, like, yeah. But you know, it came to a point where like at some point it was like, you know, you get to that teenage point, your hormones, your testosterone, you feeling like you big, and I get in my stepfather's face like, what's up then? And in that one instance, it was like like it was a conversation where it was like, bro, like, not just me, it could be me and you having this problem right now, but I get my dad. And he hit me with the, go ahead, call him. Knowing that, like, my father, you know, wasn't around. Like, he hit me with the, go ahead, call him then. He ain't gonna show up. And then, like, I talked about this on the clip, you know, on my show, and it's like, that hit me so hard because I knew that my father wouldn't pull up. And then, like I said, in that moment, I realized like I'm mad at the person who is here about the person who not. You know what I'm saying? And in that, from then, my stepfather approached discipline us different. Like we stopped getting whoopings. That's when it became hit the wall, squat, hold these books. That's when it became we did something at school, and then they called the house, and then I get to the crib and everything seemed normal, and I turned the TV on in the coax cut because we had the screw in cable. Man, you know what I'm saying?
I remember the screw in shit.
Cut that joint. Yep. No cable. We ain't watching nothing. Or one time the offense so bad came to the house, whole bedroom emptied out. Went and spent the money to get a storage unit and moved everything out the room. And then week by week, after doing good and getting good reports, coming back, earning back, you get the mattress this week. Like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So all that said to say, I get you. I tried to approach it the same way. Of like, I know that you care about these things. Yeah. And I'll take those away from you because that lasts longer than that whooping sting for that couple of seconds. Yeah. Then I got to come back and do the same thing a lot of our parents did and come back and apologize for going overboard and talk to you and try to be calm with you now after I done socked you out. No, we ain't got to do that. Yeah. I'm just going to take it all from you. I'm going to make you feel it in a different way. Give me that phone. It's like you got to adjust because the generation different. Mm-hmm. Right. We cared about going outside. If I told the kids at the house now they can't go outside, they'd be like, oh, okay. Yeah. Didn't want to do it anyway. You know what I'm saying? Like, but you take that phone, though. You take that TV. Right. Devastating.
You got to meet them at their level.
You got to meet their level.
You know what I'm saying?
So, like,
affect them.
It got to be different. And to what you said, like, I don't think that the kids necessarily need whoopings. I think that they need parents, bro. Yeah. Cause they
solid guidance.
Because they ain't got it right now. That's the thing, bro. Like, it's so many of the kids right now who are this close in age to their parents, and their parents are still trying to live. You know what I'm saying? Like, not really letting the reality set in that once you have a life that you're responsible for, your life is not all about you no more.
It's not all about you.
And instead, they at their grandparents' house or they getting babysat because you still kicking it. Yeah. Like, you still functioning. They not getting raised. It ain't just that they're not getting whooped. They not getting raised. Right. They not getting disciplined. They don't have actual structure in the first place. Right. Like, so they low key doing whatever the hell they want
to. So they don't even know how to even deal with anger.
How they gonna deal with it? So they just doing whatever, and then the parents gotta overcompensate. Like, I saw it in one of my schools I'm teaching at. Like, type of student that's like, I don't care what y'all say, I'm gonna do whatever, and I ain't gonna get in trouble for it. Like, when you know that, you know it ain't no respect for that parent at the house. Get into it with a teacher, and then the mom come up there and want to fight the teacher. Yeah, right. Like, instead of disciplining your child and understanding that your child is wrong, you got to come overcompensate and have your child back. Yeah, and be stupid.
Yeah, and I think to what you're saying is, we was talking earlier about things being black or white. I think a lot of people live in this space where they had a certain childhood and things they didn't like about their childhood. So what they do is then say, I want to make sure my kids don't go through this. Not realizing that some of the things they went through was actually had some benefit to them.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so they try to make their kids' life more comfortable.
Right.
And so then some of the discipline, holding accountable, some of those things that was definitely necessary, not necessarily spankings, but those consistent, stable role models, expectations, guidelines. There are things you had to be done, consequences, consistently being held. Those things we started pushing back away from a lot of those things. And I think what has happened now, so many of our kids now spend so much time being taught life from things on these clips on social media, on video games. And this stuff has no real depth and context to it. And so we have a lot of gifted and smart children, but if they're not engaged in something that helps them find purpose, something is going to be lacking there. So then we find kids being depressed and sad and they got all this stuff, but But because we haven't helped our kids move towards purpose, we need to help our young people move towards purpose. And there's a lot of great young people who are moving towards purpose. But when we realize that a lot of our young people are becoming depressed and becoming suicidal, you ask, like, what is their daily life like? How isolated they are? Do people have expectations for them? Are they required to do anything, to engage in anything? Maybe just go to school, good grades, and be on their game. And if they do that, life is good. But we have to engage our kids and find purpose. Because guess what? Ever since human beings been existing, the reason why we survived is not just because we wanted to survive. It's because as human beings, we develop purpose in our existence.
Yeah.
And without purpose, life has no meaning.
Facts.
And poof, why am I here? So we gotta inspire that and everything. You know what? And let me close up by saying this too. I think parents, different approaches in different situations. Like when I was a kid and I ran across the street to go to the candy store and my dad yelled and screamed at me, that was necessary.
Yeah.
That was necessary. You live in the hood and your parents telling you, not to stay out all night because the streets are dangerous, and the parent has come at you with some heat. That's probably necessary.
Right.
That's probably necessary. There's other situations, obviously, we see things we don't understand. We need to talk to our kids and we need to figure out what's going on and try to dialogue with them. And it's okay to say that we're angry. I think it's okay to say that we're frustrated and using different approaches in different situations. I don't think that's a bad thing. But the balance
piece
is the balance. Because if you use too much, if you know you're an overly angry person and you know you really physical, you probably shouldn't even approach certain things because you're gonna probably go way too far with it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're gonna go way too far with it. But anyway, y'all got anything else to say before we move on from this, guys?
Well, I just close out my last piece about the whipping thing because I still do feel like, whippings can be beneficial, right? Mm-hmm. And a calm, rational thinking person's scenario, because I feel like it can instill a little healthy level of fear, right? When you said that balance, I'm thinking that having a little fear is okay. You know what I'm saying? It's okay to have a little bit of fear, because having a little bit of fear is going to stop you from doing the extreme wrong thing, right? Like I needed that balance in my life of having certain levels of fear to say, man, if I do this might get my behind whooped. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it calmed me from making certain irrational decisions. Now, like I said, there were very minimal moments where I felt like it went overboard, but for the majority of it, I look it back on my childhood and be like, man, every time my parents took it to that level, I either deserved it or it kept me from doing something extremely that could have, hurt me later on in life. So, definitely not an advocate for abusing children on any level, you know, but I feel like, a little healthy spanking, that's just my opinion. But
Right.
I don't think it's going to be able to resurface because society is going so far away from that, and it can turn to a whole wild situation.
It can become a politically charged thing to say, spank your kids. But the reality, truth is truth. Not everybody that received a spanking was abused or perceived they was abused. And not everybody that got spanking turned out bad. I could say, hey, I had some spankings. Not a lot of them. I had some spankings growing up. And for the most part, I've never spanked my children. And realizing that, you know what, I got a few, but I always trusted my parents. I always thought that they were reliable, consistent people, and they didn't really intend to harm me. They was trying to help me learn something.
They had your best interest.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times when we hear the word fear, we think about it in a negative way. Particularly if we've been traumatized, we hear the word fear, it bothers us in a deeper sense. But fear is a normal human emotion, just like anger is. And sometimes fear keeps us from doing things that would that would lead to harm. Like I'm not gonna jump off a mountain, right? I have fear. I'm gonna be cautious about how I drive around Dead Man's Curve, right? Because there's a little fear that I might lose control of the car, right? Especially if I was on a motorcycle, right?
Right.
You approach it differently than you would if it was you approach any other curve. You just gonna hit that joint at whatever speed you hit it at. But the fact that one got a name,
Dead Man's Curve,
that's enough.
You like, you know what? I'm gonna slow down on that.
Caution to that.
Yeah. And you know, I remember being in a place in an educational environment where we was talking about fear, and I mentioned that sometimes I felt like growing up, I had just a hint of fear of my parents, and I was like, "Oh no, you can't!" Like, and I was like, "No, I think it was okay because I trusted and I believe. I never felt like they were in any way trying to harm me, and that's my anecdotal expression. But I understand I didn't get my butt kicked every day and thrown around and my stuff thrown around. They were situational events where physical corporal punishment occurred versus somebody who's, and I think one of the challenges when we say people shouldn't do it is because there's so many people out here
who can't handle themselves,
who don't know how to give a little pat on the behind to say stop. They go way out on left field somewhere.
Man,
so just don't do it at all.
That terrible. You used to be able to get whooped up in school and church. Chill out. It's okay. You can get your spank on occasionally. I'm just saying, it's like sometimes you taking the cake, and therefore you got to catch that little physical consequence. Yeah. I'm not like I said, same man. I'm not saying just go sock your kids out. That's crazy. Yeah. We're not doing that. You know, I really try my absolute hardest not to go there. And then, like I said, I got girls, so it's everything is hypersensitive, and I don't want to ever feel like I overdid or like, you know what I'm saying? Like I don't. They can have a level of fear, but I don't want them to like have dread from me. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's
you don't want them to have that
like,
dread.
I'm the man in their life, and I definitely also don't want them to feel like, well, this man in my life put his hands on me, so another man in my life can put his hands on me.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want none of that. So
exactly.
We find, I try to find other ways to deal with something.
Exactly.
And you know what I'm saying? Just think, get creative. You know what I'm saying? Do what you gotta do, folks. Raising y'all kids. But like I said, first thing first, raise the damn kids in the first place. Y'all ain't even doing that.
I mean, because lastly saying on it, man. As a barber, I cut little boys, and I see little boys who they cutting up in the chair, they wilding out, and their parents say, "Hey, stop doing that. Act right," and they just,
act right.
And then some of them just cutting up still.
Couple of them.
And then because they ain't hearing that. They ain't hearing that other side of just that child is not receiving that calm, rational type of instruction. They need something that's gonna stir them up and make them sit up straight. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So
it's like when your boy in the days, and you gotta slap his face. Hey,
you know
what I'm saying? Snap out of it, my dog. Like,
exactly. Snap out of it. No. So listen, guys. So I think in this discussion, we talked about being a father. We talked about expressing anger in healthy ways, being able to communicate feelings, thoughts and feelings without necessarily becoming physically or verbally aggressive, exercising, encouraging your kids to getting involved in things that they're passionate about. I think another important one is if they're into art or into music, allowing them to have opportunities to express that. Role modeling anger when you're dealing with them. If you're angry, being able to express it, maintaining your body, maintaining control of yourself with your family members, wives, husbands, whoever. Just remember that when you are interacting with them, the way you communicate, the things you say, your kids are watching and they're learning how to deal with anger through the way you express yourself. And so it's important, and I think another critical point here is, when I was a kid, and I think I've said this before in other podcasts, every night my parents used to always ask, how are you feeling? How are you feeling? And I was allowed to say, well, Mom or Dad, you hurt my feelings today when this happened and when that happened.
That's different.
That was different. So I didn't think nothing of it, but when I became a therapist and I realized how important it was for people to express their feelings, I realized, man, that was my parents was doing some textbook stuff back in the day that now we trying to encourage people to do, talk about feelings. And it's so much harder now because people don't sit at the dinner table. They go in their own rooms.
Like I said, they ain't
and
getting raised.
and they doing their own thing, and people not talking.
Right. Structure is definitely not there.
Yeah.
Sure.
And so, bruhs, man, we gotta do our job and just being able to regulate our emotions. And this podcast is all about right now, brothers, being able to regulate your emotions and understanding who you are. Remember that anger really is a secondary emotion, and there's other emotions underneath it. So when you're feeling angry, you should ask yourself sometime, like, what am I really angry about? Am I really angry at my mother? Am I really angry at my job? Am I angry at my wife or my friends? Am I angry about some trauma I had that I'm still holding on to? And it just manifesting itself in these different situations. It affects how I get along with my children, my family, et cetera, et cetera. We need to really ask ourselves that question, because we can go to anger management all day, but until we get to the core of the problem, the thing under the mountain that's creating the problem, we'll never be able to move forward.